Welcome everybody to this wonderful hour long with Melody Allen and Betsy Hostetler, who are the co-directors of the upcoming 2017 North American Systemic Constellations Conference coming up in October in Virginia. We're going to be getting to know them and their work and their vision for the conference better. I'm Leslie Nips. I am your hopefully humble host for the evening. And it's really, really good to see you all. So before we leap into introducing Melody and Betsy a little bit more and getting to know them better, would just like to meet all of you. So I'm going to go around, and if you would say your name and where you are, and obviously brief, we got a large group, where you are, like in a sentence, your connection to constellations, okay? Just so Betsy and Melody can start to get to know you better. Okay, and I'm going to unmute Sandy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm Sandy Starr, and I am in Richmond, Virginia, and I've been involved with constellations since 2002, I think. I experienced some stuff over in England in 2001 that made me want to learn this work, and then I was blessed with synchronistic events that allowed me to find the money, and I was able to train with Heinz Stark in Racine, Wisconsin for 2.5 years. And I've been facilitating here and there as it comes up and as people come forth. And I'm working mostly in Maryland.
Okay. So. Thank you, Sandy. Mm-hmm. And I am going to welcome Judy Wallace. Your name, where you are, and a sentence or so about your connection with constellations.
Hi, I'm Judy Wallace, and I live in Boulder, Colorado. I've been really fascinated with constellations for a while, but more the kind of collective feeling for social change type of constellation. So that's what I'm doing here in Boulder, and looking forward to the conference. And will admit I haven't paid much attention to it so far. So this is an opportunity to get more involved, to know Betsy and Melody. And yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Let's go over to Victoria. My apologies. I am going to have to ask for a very brief, what's your connection to constellations? So we can get through everybody and hear from everyone and Melody. Victoria.
Hi, yes, it's me, Victoria Pierce. I'm in Corpus Christi, Texas. I've been enrolled in Hellinger School in Germany since 2013, and now I'm working on my thesis for this school. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. So good to see you here. And Debbie. Oh. I'm going to unmute you now. Debbie Donner.
Hi, I'm Debbie Donner in Houston, Texas, and I work with Melody in Houston.
Thank you. Good to have you. Ronnie, you're next.
Ronnie George. I'm in Washington, D.C., and I'm a part of D.C. Facilitators with Betsy.
Grand. Thanks. Good to have you. Good to see you, Ronnie. Elizabeth.
I work with Allie Middleton here in Albany, and I don't know anything about constellation. She just sent me an email and said, I think you'd be interested in this. So that's why I'm here.
Perfect. You'll have to tell us if you're interested when you're done.
I will do that. It already sounds so. I don't think there's going to be a problem with my being interested.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, Ellen. I don't think you're muted, although we can't hear you. We can't hear you, unfortunately. Why don't you do a little troubleshooting, and I'll come back to you, Ellen. Lori Wells.
Hi, I'm Lori, and I live on Vashon Island in Washington State, and I just finished facilitator training with Dan Booth Cohen and Emily Volden in Rhode Island.
Great. Good to have you. Betty.
I'm Betty Zakowski. I live in New Jersey, and I've gone to a couple constellation workshops, so I'm interested in the conference.
Okay, thank you. I'll get back around to you, Ellen. I see your chat. Randy.
Though exposed to constellation years ago, I got serious about it after Karen Carnabucci introduced me to it in her Racine, Wisconsin group. And then I was part of the group that Lori just described with Dan Cohen and Emily Blayfield, and volunteer in prison doing constellations, kind of like what Dan was doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Randy. Terry.
Hi, I'm Terry Dikavolchov. I'm in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And I heard about constellations about 3 years ago, and yeah, it just pulled me in. So I just finished my third work training on the weekend and some other one-on-ones and things. So I love it. Love it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sarah, your turn.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from the eastern part of Pennsylvania in Bucks County, and I've been involved in constellation work since 2010. And at the moment, I work part-time and facilitate monthly circles in my area.
Awesome. Good to have you. Heather.
Hi, my name's Heather. I'm living in California now, and I was introduced to constellation some years ago. It's interested me, but I haven't participated yet.
Great. Good to have you. This is a nice introduction. Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy from New Zealand. I'm a facilitator down here, and yeah, I saw this link and thought it would be interesting to jump on and see how everyone's doing and learn more about the conference.
So we have an international call going on here, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Grand. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Alexandra.
Hello. Nice to see you again, Leslie. Hi to everyone. I'm from Mexico. My connection to constellations is through Rafael Ruiz here in Querétaro. I've been training with him. And I met you guys also in the West Coast Systemic Constellation. And I'm also opening myself, looking forward to the October event. And I do some monthly constellations. I'm starting in groups, and I'm also working in my place where I do holistic therapy. So I'm moving on with this. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Another international caller.
Yeah.
Allison.
Oh, hi. Hi, Leslie and everyone. I'm Allison Fornez. I am a facilitator. I live in Salem, Massachusetts right now, and I used to do some organizing for the conference in the past.
You're too humble, Allison. Practically ran it. Okay. Marjorie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Hi, I live in Massachusetts. I trained with Jamie and Peter Faust in 2005, and then again I took another advance with them a little while later. I've done some facilitating off and on over the years, and I'm excited to be able to attend the conference this year.
Great. Good to have you, Marjorie.
Thank you.
And Ellen, back to you. You're now unmuted.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Ellen. I live in San Francisco. I was introduced 10 years ago, I guess, to this through organizational or systemic constellation. And I have trained since then as a facilitator with NLP and also Jane Peterson. And now I'm working on my marriage family therapy. So that's my new focus for facilitating.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good to see you, Ellen. And then before we dive into Melody and Betsy, Karen, introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. It is wonderful to see you all. I am living now in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I have a private practice. I've been involved with constellations one way or another since 2001. And I'm on the steering committee helping to organize the conference.
Grand. Good to have you, Karen. Thank you so much for helping make this happen. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, I was I was in sort of Betsy's and Melody's spot last time around with James Wober. So, and we may see James and a few other people show up somewhere along the way during this call. But now what I would like to do is, and I'm going to be a little arbitrary about this, but I'm going to start with Betsy because she's unmuted. And Betsy, if you would introduce yourself, and I think this is always useful for facilitators generally, what's your pithy definition of constellations? Because we have one or two people here who are newer. And, you know, I love to hear the different ways people try to define it. So just introduce yourself and maybe share with us how you understand constellations now.
I'm Betsy. I appreciate your use of the word try. And that's the essence of it to me. Is like in all the work that we do, people ask, what, you know, how does that work? And we go, we don't know. You know, we get to step into the circle and we get to participate in this miracle. And we're just grateful. And that's my definition of constellation, looking at systems and how do systems look, and looking at different layers of system than we've really been allowed to look at before. And I think it's just a powerful gift that is coming to us at this time when it's so desperately needed, you know, that we look in a deeper way at what the issues are, and we look in a broader way at what the issues are. And so I come with, like you, with a deep love of constellation work. I met Hellinger in 2001 and just surrendered. I just surrendered to the work.
And where are you, Betsy?
I'm in Washington, D.C.
Great. Excellent. And Melody, give it a shot. I thought Betsy did quite well.
Yeah, I think so too. So I would echo what she said about systemic thinking. So I think as a therapist, we often use the word identified patient. And that's a person that comes to the therapeutic process and is identified as a problem in the system. So I think when we look from a constellation point, we're not allowing anyone to be considered that identified patient, that person holding the blame or the shame, but we're looking at systemically and finding out all the pieces that create whatever the entire system is going through. And what makes us different from other modalities is we don't just look at all of the systems that we can physically see in the room per se, but we also look at ancestors and other themes that might have been running through families for generations, as well as understandings, misunderstandings between people who create that system and that problem.
Woohoo! Excellent.
Yeah, and I'm in Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas, where it's, I assume, getting hot.
Very hot.
Thank you to both of you. I have to say I'm a little bit of the proud mama today. I was a big part of finding these two wonderful people and corralling them into what they're doing. They may never, forgive me, but the conference is in really good hands. So I want to turn it over to you two. The first question I just wanted to ask was, at this time, 2017, the life of the country, the life of the world, where do you see constellations going, and what's important about it now? There's so many different ways to look at this work. What seems most relevant or important or in your heart now about constellation work? And either of you can sort of pick that up.
I'm happy to jump in. The work for me, in some ways, does not change. My ability to be in touch with the work changes as I increase my own capacity. So for me, the work is like, how much more deeply can I know and experience and share what we're allowed to witness and interpret what we're allowed to witness with other people. In terms of the larger system, there's so much in movement right now. And I think we're in an especially dynamic time. We talk about bridging the divide as part of our theme. I know you'll come to that, but we look at the divides, and it feels like now more things are surfacing on the political level. And so in some ways I look at that and I say, what a troubling time. Things are getting so polarized in ways that I didn't experience even a few years ago. But then I look again and I think maybe it's just like, after the storm, all the earthworms come up, out of the ground. And it's like maybe everything is just coming up out of the ground so we can look at it. And that's what I love about constellation. And what you said, Melody, it's we come to this without blame. It's just we just look, and then we're allowed to witness. So I'm excited about the way that we can bring knowledge of constellation to many different realms now where it's needed in organizations. I think organizations want to figure out, how do we be more effective? I think therapists want to know, how can we understand the emotional life of people in ways that we couldn't quite figure out before. We may have sat with somebody for a long time and then the answer just wasn't there. And in every other, in the medical practitioner, there are certain kinds of illnesses that happen because somebody broke a bone, you need to put a cast on it. But there are other kinds of things that show up in the medical practice that have a systemic root cause. And there is no other method you can apply to help healing except to find that root cause. So in everywhere that we look, and from local to global, I see us in desperate need for this work.
Awesome. Betsy, what's kind of got your attention with constellations these days? Melody. Sorry. If I said Betsy, sorry.
Okay.
You both have Y's on the end and similar syllables.
It's fine.
People mistake us all the time.
All the time. So I just wanted to answer the question that you just posed to Betsy. And what I can say is from where I see constellation going is that I see people being a lot more creative with the work. So I guess maybe European nations would call us the rebellious adolescent child in terms of a country. But we've taken the work and we've really done amazing things with it. I personally seem to be more traditionalist in my work in terms of more of the German teachers that I had along the way. But I love to go to conferences and see people applying this work in so many different ways, including Carola, who's coming, will be doing some new work this year that she'll be sharing with everyone really soon. And I think the other thing is that people are also taking creative license with the work in their own professions. So even though this work can be hard to place in your own field, you kind of have to give yourself permission of how you're going to use it. If you're a therapist, if you're an energy worker, if you're in an office, how are you going to let this work land in a practical way? I really see people giving themselves permission to say, oh, I can extrapolate this piece and really make it concrete and make it work for me in my life. Or I can extrapolate this piece and use it for my personal life. Maybe it's not relevant in my business field. Or maybe this piece is for my personal relationships with my spouse or my family. And I think people are just allowing themselves to take the work and apply it where they need it.
Wow. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that perspective. And having said that, I'm going to ask Betsy and Melody one more question, and then I'm going to turn it over to you for your questions and your comments. So I'm going to give you a heads up on that so you can think about if you have questions for them. And then we're going to turn it over to them and some things they want to share with us in terms of what they've been working on and sort of up-level our professional learning here as well. But one more question, which is Betsy, you referred to the title, which I saw it and my jaw dropped. I really did. I was so happy when I saw this Bridging the Divide theme. Because for me, and this is just Leslie's point of view, the divide is kind of the metaphor of the United States, but in many ways the world. So it's very of the moment, which I really appreciate, but it can be applicable to so many different contexts. I myself, I do a lot of nature constellations that divide between human and nature, for instance. So I'm really curious about what you're chewing on, what you're really curious about or excited about with that theme, and to share it with the group right now, because I'm sure everybody on this gathering is also either directly or indirectly wrestling with this metaphor in our culture today. So let me start out with Melody and share your thoughts on that.
All right, so for me, the way I experience divides, they can either be intrinsic or extrinsic. So when I think about an extrinsic divide, and it's not limited to this, I think about gender, culture, race, country. And then I also think intrinsically, like what could be going on with me personally, Melody? Where are my biases? Where are my divides within me between the things that I say that I want to do and then the actions that I take or that I don't take according to that? So my relationship with myself, my relationship to others. And then there's another divide even in the work in terms of how do we package this work? Is this psychic phenomenon? Is this epigenetics, right? Is this biology? There's so many divides that we can go from. So I think for me, this theme is really broad. So I'm coming back to that topic of creativity where I'm so excited that people are picking apart all of the divides and finding out where their own personal story is or their own personal curiosity is, and then approaching the conference for getting that piece of clarity for themselves.
Rich, thank you. Betsy, what are your thoughts on this theme these days?
You know, I echo something that you said, Melody. When it's like outside the circle, it's impossible to know what it is that's going to emerge. But inside the circle at the conference, I believe we are creating a space where we really can look in depth at the personal divides, you know, the individual broken heart, the broken relationships in families, in businesses, and through wisdom traditions. Also this time with more of a focus on social justice. So I think that we'll also have a way of looking at how are we doing politically. We'll be Mexico and Canada and the United States together in new ways that we have not been before. We're very excited to expand the circle and to create the new relationships that show up there. So that's my excitement, is to see the circle expand.
Yeah, I've just heard the news that you're going to offer a Spanish language translation, which is really awesome. That's one really good concrete example of this. Can you think of, you know, 2 or 3 other examples of part of the planning where either you're trying to bridge the divide or you're trying to create a context in which it can be looked at?
I think just the whole topic of social justice to begin with is something new for the conference, because I think social justice in most forms is a really tricky area to go into. And I think that's just brave in general in terms of bringing different cultures together, different countries, different perspectives, and really talking about topics that potentially some people don't agree on. Like, you know, when we're talking about family work, everyone agrees who's the mom, who's the dad, who's the kids. I mean, that's pretty easy. But when you get to political perspectives and partisanship or bipartisanship, potentially things get a little hairy. So I think we're already into that, bringing in the diversity of opinion, thought, and discourse.
And I think we will be a container as we are on this phone call today. We are creating a container, and at the conference, I believe we'll be in a position to create an extraordinary container so that we can look at things that have been polarized, that actually want to remain polarized, or that actually want to move back and reduce the polarization. I think we'll be in a position to do that if that's what emerges that we want to look at. And there's another way also. Many of the speakers that are coming are really leading edge thinkers. The keynote speakers, some of the pre-conference workshop people that are coming are leading edge thinkers in this field. So again, to me, the work is just so central and so true. But how you can expand it and look at the work in new ways. So Thomas Hubel is looking at how, what kind of culture do we want to create as human beings? What is the house we want humanity to live in, is the way that he talks about it. And he says, with all the trauma that we have going on, how do we relate to ourselves, to one another, and then also create a culture that is habitable? You know, but he's done beautiful work about what are some personal practices that each of us can do. So it's not this impossible thing, you know, I live in a crazy world. It's a thing that we can co-create. And Angwin St. Just has been doing work. It's just outside of what most people are thinking about. She's kind of looking over time at, like, what are the coincidences over time with large geographical events? And how do those play, and how does fate manifest itself now, so that we have a new way of understanding our own lives, our own world that we live in. Corolla is, Melody, you might want to say a word about Corolla's. I mean, you said she's doing some very leading edge thinking. How do you put quantum medicine together with constellation? And so I think it's going to be very enlivening.
Great.
A chance for all of us to look at our own thinking and then say, you know, what else?
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's going to be great.
And the other divide being the planet and climate warming, and we hope that Norfolk doesn't have any water. No hurricanes. I'm really looking forward to it in October. So I'm curious, anybody here have some questions? You just raise your hand like this. I can see you. For those of you I can't see, just unmute yourself and ask or place a question in the chat. Anyone have a question for Melody or Betsy? It's okay if you don't, but if you do, yeah, Karen, I've got you unmuted.
It's actually not a question, but what I do want to notice is, as we talk about our presenters here today, Jamie Faust is sitting right here. So I think I want to say hello to her and also mention she's at the pre-conference, which is another very important part of what we're doing in Virginia Beach in October. Hi, Jamie.
Jamie, would you just say a word about your pre-conference? You're unmuted. Oh no, we can't hear you. There we go. There you go.
Hi. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm sorry I was late, but I just came in at a great time when you're talking about the ideas of the divide. So I'll drop right in here. Peter and I are presenting together, as we do in this constellation work. And our work is to help us understand the inner divide, the divide that we manifest within our own inner masculine and our own inner feminine, that may have been taken on by the ancestral imprints. And so as we look at ways in which we have negated our own masculinity if we're feminine, our femininity if we're masculine, that we start to understand the non-duality of the soul. And as we come into that healing of that divide within, there's so much more that we can access and have our forward momentum in life, to live our soul's purpose. And sometimes when we've been hurt by a gender, it doesn't even have to be could even be the same gender. We may have been hurt by the feminine, even if we're a woman. And how do we let go of those parts of ourselves, or split off those parts of ourselves, and how can we bring them back and heal the divide within?
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Jamie.
You're welcome. And I just want to say one thing. Thank you, Betsy, and thank you, Melody and Karen, and Ronnie. I see so many people here who are right now in the midst of preparing the conference and getting, things done. So just thank you for your work and your efforts, and just hello to everyone else whose faces I've seen on Facebook. And now I like to put the names together with your faces. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And I can testify, if you ever get a chance to stand beside Jamie Faust, you will feel better afterwards. This is my experience. And I also want to say Leslie is one of our featured speakers, and we're so excited that you'll you'll be there too. I don't know if you want to say a word about your work.
Actually, what I wanted to do was turn it over to Ronnie for a second, since Jamie just mentioned Ronnie, because Ronnie's working with Chuck Cogliandro, yes, to do some important kind of context setting for the conference. So could you just share, a word or two about that?
Sure. I've had the incredible honor of exploring the local folks in Virginia Beach, those of indigenous backgrounds. So I've actually found a really amazing association that brings together the Native American and the African American descendants from the colonial era, and just what they bring, what their life stories are, and to really to go to them as a way of honoring the past, of looking at really what has been, and to receive a blessing for the work that we hope to do on the land there.
Yeah,
it's been a wonderful opportunity to get to know these people, and an excitement that I feel within them about this work coming there, because obviously there's a lot of pain, a lot of fracture that's rife in their communities, and so that they are looking forward to the possibility of healing, of a different modality of coming in and being a support and part of our nation's healing process. That feels really exciting to be able to bring that as a community.
And that's one of the legacies of the previous conferences, because most of the previous conferences have all made an effort to do that. We did that in San Diego in 2015. So it's very important to connect with the land and the people that, we're just coming to a conference hotel, right? That's all we're doing, but it's a place, and that's us. That's Constellation facilitators. We think that way. So thank you for doing that, Ronnie. That's really wonderful. I really appreciate it. Again, an opportunity, ask any questions of any of our leaders. Yeah, Alexandra, please. And she found her own unmute. Yay!
Good. Okay, well, I was just thinking right now, in terms of how would you manage a constellation that has to bridge this diversity? Would you do it through looking into the system directly and see what the field says and what the elements are needed, deciding personally as a facilitator? Or do you have also like cases or a guideline? For example, I was thinking of the book Returning to Membership of the Earth Community, where there are Francesca Mason-Boring, where you have different kind of investigations regarding a specific area, and maybe like a format or different formats that have diversity. Did I make myself clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Pretty clear. The audio was not perfect, but Betsy or Melody, why don't you try and respond? And it's a general question, but
Yes.
What comes up for you when you hear Alexandra's question?
Yeah, I'll just, or you go ahead, Melody, if you like.
Okay, so just generally speaking, Alexandra, I'm not really sure what type of diversity you're talking about in general, but I'm just going to speak maybe from a cultural diversity standpoint. And I would say that's going to depend on how you're grooming yourself as a facilitator. So it depends on whether you have a level of cultural competence, and there are several different frameworks that you can find. There's tons of resources out there about defining and deciding where your level of cultural competency is. And then from there, you can decide if you want to actually have a framework that you're working with, or if you're deciding that you're going to research about history and a lot of different cultures and get a level of communication and connection where you feel comfortable traversing different groups of people to where you feel more and more comfortable jumping into that topic. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, I was thinking more in terms like how to make a configuration in when you're working with this diversity, trying to heal this diversity with whether it's internal, external, cultural, or Because I imagine each case scenario has different elements that sometimes the field expresses on its own, and you decide what to take into this constellation. And then there might be also you that have experience and are going to work with this. If you have also had like a guideline of elements that work to heal this division, this problem, like maybe, I don't know, the love of the spirit or equality or diversity or nature, or do you have something we can start looking into?
Well, Francesca will be joining us at the conference. So, of course, we're very pleased by that. And many people who have studied with Francesca will be there too. And so we can kind of go directly to her and say, what do you bring from your book, and bring it forward, because there's just a lot of wisdom there. When the program team started to think about how are we going to take on this topic, we knew that the constellation work is robust enough to be able to hold anything if we create a circle that's strong and solid and healthy. And they are also clear that there is one guideline that will be essential as we move into this work. And they're reaching out to train all the facilitators and all the presenters, and of course invite all of us as we join in. And that is to come from a place of no blame. And what often happens in when things get polarized, whether it's politically polarized or at the national level or across borders or globally or just personally, but when things get polarized, they sometimes get heated. And when that happens, sometimes then our ability to see is not as clear. And this work at the heart is phenomenology. It's like, can I look? Can I look without judgment? Can I look without blame? And even, can I look without hope? Can I just be willing to see what is there? And all these other things that come up kind of cloud the way. And the more clearly we can sink in to looking in a clear and light way, I think the clearer our channel becomes. And then we move that out into the world. And Leslie, you talked about the climate change and the planet, and that is the hope at the end of all of this bridging the divide, is that we can all see clearly enough through the things that have us blocked that we can work to save the planet. This is our task. And when we cannot look clearly, then we can't move clearly. I don't know if that helps a little bit, Alexandra.
Very nice, thank you. Yes.
And just to add on to that, I really, the elements we put into a constellation always depend upon the question we're asking. Because as Betsy said, it's everything. Everything is part of the constellation theoretically. And what I like about the conference is that there's little chunkings down. So there's looking at nature, there's looking at male-female divides, there's racial issues, there's rich-poor issues, there's internal issues, trauma. And then when we know what the question is, we can start deciding on what elements are relevant. And that's what I enjoy when I step into these various workshops and presentations, is finding out what's relevant to the speaker or to the topic, and then thinking, oh, that wouldn't have occurred to me. Oh my goodness. And now a whole new world or lens on the question has been opened. So that's just another thing that makes I find there are strengths in a lot of different ways of doing constellation work. And the strength of a conference is kind of that. I think of it as a bit of a buffet, and you have a lot of different lenses you can look at over a very short contained period of time, and just leave with an enormous number of tools and perspectives and connections that can really, for me, it's completely, every time I go to a conference, I go home and my practice is completely changed. It just isn't the same anymore. So I wanted to turn to give them a chance. Betsy, you wanted to say a few words to us about the experience of representing, I think it is, and some things you've been chewing on about what is it to be a representative? What does that mean? What are the limits and the possibility of representing?
I'm going to turn that to
Sorry,
Melody.
Melody, I did it again.
That's okay. That's okay.
Melody.
So that's okay. So at the conference, I'm planning to do a presentation on representation. And representation has been an important topic to me because it was a big part of my evolutionary work as a healer and as a student of constellation work. So I came to constellation work during my time as a student at Barbara Brennan School. And Barbara Brennan School is a healing school where you're really working on dealing with improving yourself as a person, your self-awareness, your persona in the world. But it also has a lot to do with developing your high sense perception or the psychic arts. So I came to this program right after leaving Barbara Brennan. And one of the things that fascinated me was the representation process, because it's a place where I could tap into how I was sensing myself as an intuitive person. So when I stepped into the role of a representative, I was very curious about how I was able to open up my personal energy field to either resonate with another person, to get information, and even to have bodiless sensations of what was going on. Like I might be representing someone who has an illness and I would feel it in my body, or someone who was experiencing some type of pain or a missing limb or all that kind of thing. So it was a big growing process for me to be able to not be afraid of that energy, but to open up my vessel and, for lack of the better word, channel through that energy and really be able to be a clear conduit for someone who needed information and healing. And I was also very aware when I saw people whose own biases came into their representation work, and how I really wanted to be in integrity as a representative. But that also took me looking at my own personal work and finding out what was mine and what was theirs in the terms of that type of dialogue. And then also just being emotionally generous with what I was able to share and open myself up to in terms of the experiences of being a representative. So that's just my experience of being a representative. But I think if people come to the conference or they just get a constellation and they're not necessarily the client, they're not the one that's presenting the issue per se, and they get the opportunity to be a representative, I think it's a great way to improve your psychic awareness. And I think it's a great way to really fine-tune your communication so that you're being able to hear messages clearly, generate messages clearly, and I think that can start with that representation process, and then it can travel to all aspects of your life.
Wow. Yeah. And there can be this sort of energy. I want to be the client. I want to be the client. Oh, I only get to be a representative.
Mm-hmm.
But
I went to conference after conference and I just wanted to be the representative because I really wanted to hone that skill.
And it's kind of, it can be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an extraordinary experience to be able to get outside of your own story.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, it's such a gift.
I really look forward to that workshop. We so often dive into the experience of the client. To really dive into in a deep way and take a deep look at the representational experience, that's going to be a great workshop. Thank you for bringing that in.
Thank you, Leslie.
And Betsy, you bonding in constellations is something you've been thinking a lot about lately. Share a bit more about that with us.
Yes. I think there are a few folks on the phone call who are new to constellation, and so I just wanted to talk about the very basics for a moment so that you will know that you're among kindred spirits when you come to the constellation conference. The kind of the most core question with this kind of systemic work is, what's happening in there? You set up a constellation, what's happening? And what we see is that in every system, every family system, every person has a right to belong. And if someone is excluded in in one generation, someone will come along later, or someone may come along later, 1 or 2 or 3 generations later, who takes a stand for them and perhaps develops symptoms of the way that they were excluded, or develops symptoms that relate to that person's life. And we see this pattern over and over. And it allows us to think about our own lives and to think about the people that came before us, and how there are ways in which we may be carrying out the fate of other people without knowledge about that. We had somebody come and their son was just crashing into things. He would fall off the wall and then he'd crash the motorcycle, and he just went from one thing to the next, crashing. And we looked back at the constellation, and what we could see is that he had a great uncle who flew a plane in the war and crashed the plane. And there was such grief in the system about that. There was one person in particular who said, my task is to protect this person. And he could not do it because this brother went off to war. And so this son that comes later, as a way of kind of saying, I'll do it for you. It's kind of saying, if I crash myself, maybe there is some way that I can take away the suffering and the pain that still sits and exists in the family system, because somehow they could not process it. They could not handle the grief, and they could not move forward. We looked once at set up a representative for an autistic boy about 6 years old, and he just was not speaking. And we set it up and looked at the whole system, and what we saw was that there was an aborted child who was in the same womb that he was in before he came. And the mother did not look at the child that she had aborted, and she wanted to acknowledge it as nothing. But the autistic boy said, no, I will acknowledge. I will not allow this person to be excluded, and I will be with them and hold them, and perhaps in the silence, perhaps the silence that the other one held. And they were able to see some movement afterwards. There was one person who said, I just feel like there's a wall between my daughter and myself. And she was in great pain about it. So she looked up the family system, and literally we could see there was a point where her ancestors were separated on 2 sides of the Berlin Wall. And a family was torn apart. And she and her daughter were finding a way to recreate that out of a deep love for the system and a deep love for the family. But in a way that didn't make any sense for them and didn't really belong to them. And that's what's possible in the constellation work, is that we can say, where did this thing come from? Does it make sense in my own life? Where did this come from? And what's the dynamic, and how can I make a shift so that I can gain some freedom? It's the most elegant method that I think we know. And there are so many beautiful kinds of healing, mainline healing, alternative healing. And this constellation work, I think, it is elegant beyond belief. And I'm so happy we all get to participate in it.
It's quite a remarkable moment when a client, halfway through a constellation begins to notice, oh, I'm connected to that. Mm-hmm. It's quite magical to be in the presence of, and it's a little spooky, but it's really quite beautiful too. Yeah, thank you. And we've all had that moment for ourselves, mm-hmm. where we've gone, oh, I'm connected to that. I didn't know I was connected to that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Melody and Betsy, very much for sharing what's kind of on your mind constellation-wise these days. I want to shift gears here. I want to turn it over to Karen Carnabucci for just a moment. She's going to share a few details with us, a few logistics. I'm actually going to share screen with you so you can maybe scribble some stuff down, and then come on back for final comments and questions. So over to you, Karen, and I'm going to do a share screen. And I've got you unmuted now. There you go.
Yes, thank you. So one of the many reasons we're doing this kind of teleconference is to get you excited about the conference. Whether you're going to the conference or whether you're not going to the conference, we hope you are, of course. But if you're interested or growing more interested, we really invite you to visit the website. The website is nascconstellations.org. We are a nonprofit organization. You see on your screen a beautiful picture of the hotel in the grounds. That is the place where we'll be. And we have a newsletter where we have all kinds of news of constellation things and conference things that we invite you to be part of. Most of all, we invite you to register or to look at registering. And there is once again, the website, nascconstellations.org, where you can register, where you can learn about the presenters and their topics. You've seen some of them tonight, where you can learn about the pre-conference and the keynotes. It is in Virginia Beach, October 5th to 8th, in Founders Inn and Spa, Virginia Beach, Virginia. And please go to the website, take a look, see the wonderful things that we have there. Look at our blog. I happen to edit the blog, so I'm especially pleased about it and all the contributions that we have. And we also hope that you subscribe to the e-letter.
And if you know now that you want to register, now's the time to do it to save $130, because you know how it is for conferences. They always go through rate changes as you get closer to the event. The reason for that, of course, is it helps the event. We want to reward people who register early, and it also helps fund. We're already spending money, so it helps, pay some of the bills along the way. So if you know you're going, we strongly urge you to register by July 3rd. And if you were impressed by Betsy and Melody and Ronnie and Karen and Jamie and me, then go to the website and see all the other presenters. It's a little jaw-dropping, to be honest. The list of people is like, you guys have just been amazing this year at getting astonishing leaders within the community, but also outside the community, which is always very important to me, that we have leaders inside the community to speak to us, but also that we have people from outside constellations to teach us and connect us with systemic thinking, but in other contexts. Last time we had Ed Tick, who brought in the world of veterans and working with healing with veterans. This year we have Thomas Hubel. And so that's always really personally important to me that we do that. So that's the conference. Hope you can come. Any last comments or questions, either from our co-directors or from anybody else here? Again, you can always raise your hand. Karen, yes, please.
I want to mention Judy Wallace. Judy, you are a presenter, is that right?
Yes. I just unmuted you, Judy. Yes, you. And now she muted herself because I was too fast. Now you're on.
Yes, thank you. So what did you want to ask me, Karen?
I just wanted to make yourself. I wanted you to make yourself known.
Oh, okay.
Wanted to acknowledge you that you are here tonight as well.
Yeah,
What's your
and
topic,
it's an honor. It's an honor to be presenting. I don't remember exactly what I said in my proposal.
You'll remind yourself before October, right?
It was scaffolding, Judy. Yeah. The reason I know all this is I typed all the information in. That was part of my job. So when you read the website, you will see everybody's picture and information, including Judy's.
Well, and I remembered the scaffolding, and it's really sacred scaffolding. And how do we create that for the space that people are going to enter into? So as I've heard mentioned here, it's about a container. And my work is really about large systemic change, collective healing for social change, social justice. So it's already a big field with big energies, and it's really important to create a very sacred space for that. Mm-hmm. So that's part of what I'll do, as well as doing a constellation. Thank you.
Awesome. Sandy, I saw your hand go up. I just unmuted you.
Thanks.
And thank you, Judy.
I just wanted to let Betsy, Melody, and Karen know, since I'm so local to all this, that I'm more than happy to help you in any way that you might need, and just hook up with me and tell me, because
Okay.
I'm going down to my sister's tomorrow, but it's like, I'm local, and I'm willing to help you in any logistical way you might need.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Something that people don't know is that this is essentially an all-volunteer conference. From the people who set up the water and the workshop rooms to our co-directors. And so to have a place of honor and respect for all the volunteers at every level, and anyone who wants to help on in, glad to have you contribute whatever your strength or gift is. Thank you. Someone else had their hand up. Yes, no, question, a comment, a share. Yes, Elizabeth, I've got you unmuted now. There you go.
All right. My question is, I'm not a therapist. I retired at the age of 79 2 years ago. I was a financial advisor for 27 years. And I was a music teacher in a school, public school, in my community prior to that. And I've been working on self for probably 60 years. And Ali told me to tune in today. She must think that somehow I can benefit from this. Now, maybe she is thinking and doesn't know, but I was wondering, are the people who attend this mostly therapists, healers of one sort or another? I have studied, I've done Reiki. I am a Reiki practitioner, but I don't practice it.
Would it be all right if I took this, Betsy and Melody?
Absolutely.
So we have everything from people who are there for absolute personal healing. Very often it's the clients of facilitators who go, and all the way up to professionals who want to do skill increase. Social activists, artists, it's a wide variety of people who come. And if for the people who come for more personal healing, they get 4 days of deep dive personal healing work. It's really remarkable. People leave with something shifted and changed for themselves. So it's a both and.
Okay.
Maybe she recommended that you come because she knew that we would benefit from your presence.
I'm certain.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And Elizabeth, I'm also a professional dancer before I came to this. So I'm in the artist camp. And I didn't find constellation as a therapist. I found it in my dancing world. So I was totally just a curious person.
Okay.
And I wanted to do my own personal work.
Okay. And that's really what I've been doing. I'm concentrating on my personal work is delving into my ancestor lines as well as my children. I'm trying to stay out of their lives in a way.
Yeah.
But guiding them.
Stepping into a new role.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I have a long history of wanting to save the world. I mean, I worked in the civil rights movement back in the 60s.
Nice.
And, there's always the need.
Yes.
For curing people in the world, for curing our culture. I mean,
Yes.
it seems like our world is falling apart as we speak. Hopefully.
Yes.
We would love to have you, Elizabeth, and about 300 of your friends.
Yes, exactly.
We would love to have you. So my friends, we're at 3:02. That's my time, 2 after, whatever time you're in. I'm so honored you all took an hour today to come and learn a little bit more and bring your energy. We're going to be doing a lot more of these. I'm going to be doing more of these live events with some of the keynoters and the highlighted presenters, hearing from them, giving you the opportunity to ask them questions and engage with them. And so hope you will come to future ones as they get announced and scheduled. And for now, what I am going to do is unmute everybody, which may make a ruckus. And Melody, was there something else you wanted to say? No? No? Unmute everybody and just say goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
At the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
Randy.
See you at the next
you.
event.
Karen.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.